Thursday. Thank you. And at that meeting, they spotlighted those who were nominated to become the Teacher of the Year. Now, I want to make some distinctions and some clarifications about this nomination process. This is for the statewide Teacher of the Year, and it is an involved process. Now, the actual Teacher of the Year did not come from a charter school, but there were a number of schools that are teachers that were nominated by their schools. And then once they were nominated, that's not the end of it. And then they have to fill out an application. So these are the ones who did the application. They were reviewed by the committee. There was a finalist interview. So that's who we recognized. And I believe that you have who they are. So I just want to give a shout out to all of them here. And all of you can do your kind of a silent clapping. We've got Amy Butterfield. She teaches second grade at C.S. Lewis Academy. Yeah, there was Carl Young. He teaches math at Walden School of Liberal Arts. David Buckley, computer science band and cross country. You can definitely tell he's a charter person. He's at Merritt Academy. You have Jamie Jensen. She teaches third grade at Guadalupe School. John Perry Christensen, he teaches social studies at UCAS. Judy Johnston is in special education at Valley Academy Charter. I think we have two more. Rachel Wilkinson, she teaches second grade at Odyssey Charter School, and Sarah Holden teaches kindergarten at Treeside Charter School. Were there any others? One more, Sky Hagen. She also teaches kindergarten at Greenwood Charter School. So I just want to congratulate all of these. It's wonderful to read about them, to hear about them, all of the amazing things that they did for their students. And yeah, so just a moment, we can all give our little claps and congratulations to them. I do also recognize that they're not the only amazing teachers that are in our charter schools. And I do want to point out that this is something that happens annually. There are nominations. It is usually Robert Austin who makes the call out to gather more charter school nominations. And I do want to encourage you to nominate your teachers. I know that there's been rumors in the past that I've heard that they'll never pick a charter school teacher. I have staff who serves on this committee, and they say that's not true, that there is a opening and a possibility that a charter school teacher could be selected as Utah's Teacher of the Year. So I do encourage all of you that when that call goes out again, to nominate teachers who you think would be deserving of this. So that's the main thing I have. I also do want to just reiterate, you've seen this in the newsletter. You may have been contacted directly. Right now, we're trying to work on helping all of our schools improve on their compliance with Open and Public Meetings Act. This is something that's important for transparency. We want to be more transparent. We want to also just obey what is required of charter schools. And we know that this is something that it's not like you went to school to become a teacher and this was one of the classes that you took on how to make sure that your board is keeping with Open and Public Meetings Act. So we know that this is something that you and your board members who didn't go to school at all for this likely may not know. And so we're right now making a push to try and answer questions and try to ensure that all of our schools are meeting the basic requirements of this. And then after we make this push and give the assistance and the technical support on that, if there's schools that still choose to not be in compliance, and I do use that word strategically choose, then we would be sending notice of concerns and just working with the schools and their boards to get into compliance. Our goal is to just have better compliance in that, and to make it easier for you to be in compliance. And that's all that I have. There is some exciting news that I know Marie is going to be sharing about OEK funding. We're excited about that. Also happened in the board meeting, but I'll let her share that. And then I will now turn the time over to Superintendent Dickson, who I see is on the call, and she has a few things to share with you.
Thank you, Jennifer. So Marie, if I could get you to take down your screen and have everybody turn on their camera. I'd love to just have this be a chat and see you all if possible. Wow, so awesome to see everybody. That is a nice looking gallery. Thanks for turning on your cameras. Now I feel better that we're all in a room together. So I wanted to talk about a few things, and I apologize for my voice. I have that lovely respiratory virus that's going around. And so I took my turn in line to get a COVID test and came back negative, but you probably got sick kiddos and faculty with something similar. It's just kind of a funny fall cold. Last year I had to cancel, or I didn't have to, but I just felt like it was important that I canceled my fall tour and trying to really minimize visitors in your schools. But in the spring, I was able to go out and visit charter schools. And that's where I put my focus for the spring, and just had such a wonderful time, and just ended the school year on such a high note, knowing all the great work that was going on in spite of all of the challenges. And I thought, okay, next year will be so much better. Why didn't you guys tell me that this year would be even crazier? I don't know if y'all feel that way, but we've had a lot of issues to deal with. So I wanted to talk with you about a few of those. First, I want to talk about the use of Esser funds. Aren't we in this interesting time where we have all this money, and for charters, you know, you're struggling for dollars anyway, and to suddenly have money to spend on COVID. It's been sort of this blessing and a curse of, yay, we have money, but trying to make sure that it's spent within the guidelines and spent on the right things is, I know it's a challenge for some of you. We like to say, fund the plan instead of plan for the fund that you're receiving. So I know that you all have school plans in place, and hopefully being able to fund all of those plans and use Esser funds appropriately is what you're doing. And we have this grants management system in place. You all know you're uploading things into the grants management. But I just want to highlight a couple of things that we're seeing. We've been seeing receipts come in for food, candy, all those kinds of reimbursements. And so we've made a decision to really just stick with Title I guidance, so that we're not trying to figure out, is Skittles for math okay, or this meal for the teachers, or crumble cookie deliveries. We're just taking all that off the table and really getting focused on appropriate use. So we're using the federal guidance that comes through Title I for food. And I know that Sarah Young is getting ready to send that guidance out to you, so look for that. We did have an opportunity to meet with legislative leaders as well and talk about funding coming into the fall. And, you know, I'm sure of our many good legislators who want to fund schools, there might be this idea in the back of their head of, wow, we have all this federal funding, so maybe we don't need to appropriate as much money. So our conversation has been focused on the WPU is still so important because that's where your flexible dollars are. And in addition, we can't use federal short-term money for long-term goals and long-term programs. So you'll see from our board, and board member Hutchings is on and can talk to you down the road a little bit as the process rolls out, but the board likes to prioritize things that are sustainable. So you'll see us asking for some sustainable funding, either to expand programs like OEK and other programs that you're finding success with, or continue to ask for money of things we haven't received. For example, as charters, you know the challenge of capital improvements. And not having the ability to raise property tax for you is even a greater challenge. So we've been really interested in the infrastructure bill, supposedly coming out from the federal government, but Esser funds cannot pay for capital improvements unless it's, ventilation related, et cetera. So having that conversation with our legislative leaders is important as well. So there's this optical part of it that's really important. Everybody's watching to see how we're spending the federal dollars and will it make a difference. So I just give you this shout out for the good work you're doing, but also this caution to think about, is this something you would feel comfortable being able to stand in front of the legislature and say, this is how we spend our money to make for the time that was lost on learning. We're bringing our kids up to grade level, or we're working on social emotional support, mental health support, or we lost momentum with this program, so we put money into this program. Whatever it is, just make sure it's COVID related, that you can justify it and you can show how it's making a difference for your students and your programs and your faculty. So just that extra caution. And you know that we have staff always willing to help you. The Sarahs, as we like to call them, Sarah Harward, Sarah Young, Jessica, we're all here to support you. So the second thing I want to talk about, and if I have time, Jennifer, I can take questions at the end, but let me just run through these three things. The second thing that I actually would like some feedback on, and you can put this in the chat. This has to do with masks in schools. And you know that the Office of Civil Rights is investigating Utah to make sure that we are not violating FAPE, the rights of students with disabilities to engage in appropriate education services. And in spite of my best efforts on the phone with folks from the Department of Education, as well as the Office of Civil Rights, seemed hard to convince them that we did not have a statewide ban on masks. We just pushed it to the local level. Excuse me. And so while we thought that we had been able to redirect them with their, oh, that makes sense. Oh, we didn't understand that. A week later, we did get the full 20 question review. So we have to give them a lot of data. And simultaneously, while that federal OCR review is going on, we had 15 parents file complaints with the AG's office. And those complaints are about their students who have conditions on their 504 or IEP that would require a mask. They're medically fragile. And so we're trying to work on, excuse me, we're trying to work on a compromise that would allow for students to wear a mask and require kids around them to wear masks. So we're trying to think about what are all of the challenges with this approach. So let's say I have a 504 plan. I have a medically fragile condition, or a condition that means I need to wear a mask and those around me need to wear a mask. And I come to my classroom, and as a teacher or a principal, you ask the children in the class to wear masks, and you have parents who say no. Then what do you do? So if that's a requirement through the Office of Civil Rights, then you could take the students whose families refuse to have the mask up and put them in another class. You could, if you have a student who has a 504, excuse me, talking's getting to me. You have a student who has a 504 IEP that says they can't wear a mask, then what do you do? So what are some of your thoughts? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, more chat. Okay, thank you for bringing those in. You can probably tell I'm having a coughing attack. We'll capture all of those comments in the chat, and I'll give those to our assistant attorney generals. We have a meeting with the Office of Civil Rights this week, so we'll want to bring up some of those concerns. And we knew that for charters, it would be very much like our small rural districts as well, and we heard the same things this morning from them. So thank you so much for all those comments, super helpful. The last is the guidance on gender, specifically transgender. You know that I sent out a memo that looked at case law and statute that we believe states you need parent permission when you're talking about the law talks about sexual orientation, but the case law has shown that courts bring gender identity into that. So we wove that into the asking of students for preferred pronouns would result in parent permission. That was part of what we saw as requests for ongoing guidance beyond Title IX. Title IX right now with transgender indicates that you have to allow for students to use their bathroom of choice, their bathroom, locker room, all of that of choice. Okay, so we did have some equity directors, charter directors, superintendents reach out and say, we would really like some statewide guidance. So our board, through standards and assessment, took on the assignment of having staff put that together based on what they could see in case law, and then talk about what would that guidance look like. The board got a ton of feedback on all sides of the issue. And at the end of the day, they decided to push pause on the guidance. It will likely be discussed one more time in a board committee meeting, but the commentary that we're receiving, and we received it loud and clear from the superintendents this morning, is leave it local, case by case basis. We know our families, we know our students. So let me give you some examples of things that we're seeing. When the guidance came out around pronouns, we immediately started hearing things like, so a kid cannot use their preferred pronoun on a paper? No, that's not what we said at all. Or a teacher can't wear a preferred pronoun pin? It's not what we said. So we started seeing some overreaction to a lot of it, and people running and telling their teachers to take everything down in their classrooms. Again, those are local decisions. So you and your board and your faculty and your community, you're going to have to determine what works. We want every single student to feel safe in your classroom. And so something like, this is a safe space sign. Is that okay? In many of your schools, probably. But you have to make those determinations. And you want our students, especially those who are most vulnerable for a variety of issues, especially not feeling safe and having mental health issues, you want to make sure that you're taking care of every student's needs. So anyway, just be aware of that we're likely not to put out state guidance around gender, transgender, other than what we've laid out with that particular statute on parent permission. So you and your boards will have to make those determinations about, can you fly a flag? Can you have a statement? What does a poster look like? We're also going to send you out a document. It's about a 15-page document that's super exciting reading around some constitutional freedom of speech guidance that can help you understand what rights your teachers have and your students have. And then we're going to also send you some case law as well as a statute that can protect some of your teachers from the things that we're starting to see on social media, like doxing and what amounts to bullying in some cases of teachers. So trying to get that right about teacher free speech, which is much more limited than student free speech, and what can be in classrooms, all of that. We just feel like we'll give you enough tools that you can make those determinations for yourself. You know your community, you know your students, and you know what their needs are. So hopefully that's helpful. We have had quite a few of you ask about it. So how about 3 minutes of questions? Marie, Jennifer? Okay.
That sounds great.
Right. Anybody want to ask a question, or you can put a question in the chat? I would imagine you have a lot of questions right now about all of the gender stuff. So if you think of some and you, as you walk away or think about it more, again, we'll send you some things that can help you make those decisions. But I know that there are a few things. Hannah, let me see if I can get that and put it in the chat. I can't quote it, but I can get it for you. And it was, I think it's been around a few years. And then there's also statute from Representative Stratton that speaks to doxing and bullying of teachers, or it calls it out of people who work in public entities. So we want to make sure you have that. I used it recently for some doxing of a parent that was going after me, and used it, and it seemed to get them to back up. Okay, anything else? I'll stay silent now, and then if you have anything in the chat, I'll try and answer it in the chat. Does that sound all right, Marie? I don't want to be distracting, but.
That sounds great. Also, all of the answers that were shared in chat, if you'd like, I can compile those and I'll send those over after our meeting.
I would love that. I'd like them. Yeah, that would be great. Since we're meeting with OCR tomorrow, we want to make sure we have all that feedback.
Perfect.
Okay. Bless you guys. So good to see you. Thanks for all your hard work. I'm so sorry this year's not any easier. In some ways, it's even tougher. But you're amazing leaders. Really appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Dickson. We will go next. We have Gordon here from the Trust Land Administration, and she's going to share some trust land updates for this school year. So Natalie, take it away.
Hello, can you guys hear me? I hadn't tested my microphone before. Thanks, Marie. So the main thing that I wanted you to know is that our Karen has retired, and we miss her. She's fabulous. We loved her, and she was so great, and she loved working with the charter schools. We have hired Elise Newey, and we already love working with her, and we know that you will as well. She's going to take point on charter schools like Karen did. She's also going to take point on our training. So I will let her introduce herself, and then just a quick reminder that your school trust land council membership needs to be entered into our website before October 1st. So if you have any questions about any of this, if you need help getting a login, I'm going to put my information in the chat so that you guys can email me or call me later. And I just want to now have Elise just quickly introduce herself.
All right. Hi, so I'm Elise Newey. I'm new with the Trust Land Office. Obviously, I'm really excited to work with you and to be a part of this program. I just, as a little background, I'm a former school teacher. I taught special education in 4th grade and love what you all do and love the charter schools here in Utah. Just trying to think of anything else. We're coming out with some new training things this year. We will be sending out a sign up form. If you want training, you can use that now or anytime throughout the year. Some of you have already done that, and I'm so excited to get in contact with you and start doing some great training. So thank you.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Natalie, it looks like your information that you put in chat came just direct message to me. So if you want to put that into everyone, or else I can copy and paste that into the chat to everyone as well. So Natalie, if you can just update that, or if not, I can hop in and do that. Thank you so much. And we're excited to work with Elise and get all of our trust lands up and running this year. Next, we have Rachel College and Lisa Young, who are our educational leadership specialists and coordinator at USBE. And they are going to be talking about cactus setup and preparing for some of the upcoming deadlines to make sure that you have the information you need to successfully meet those deadlines. So we will turn the time to Rachel and Lisa.
Hi all, can you hear me? Yes, excellent. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Lisa, and I am going to sneak in a quick repeated invitation to all of you to participate in some of the professional learning opportunities we have designed for you. They're all optional, but we hope you will consider them. I've shared the link to the professional learning opportunities with you before, but I just sent it through the chat for your consideration. I especially want to highlight our PPNs. If you click on that link, you can scroll down to where I've highlighted in green our PPNs. These are our principal partnership networks, but they are open and welcoming to all district principals and charter school principals and directors. This year, you have options based on your preference for professional learning and collaboration. We have regional networks that you can jump into, so you are learning with other leaders in your area. But we also have 4 great focused PPNs that you could consider. I'm putting in the chat box the link to Midas so you can see the different PPNs. I really want to highlight the focused PPNs for those of you who lead schools that have been identified for formal school improvement. We now have a specialized PPN for you. We also have a PPN for those of you in schools that serve middle grades and who really would like to focus on those grades. And we have a PPN for new school leaders. And I'm really excited about this one because it is extremely personalized for the leaders who participate in that, including like one-on-one mentoring and coaching from really experienced school leaders. So I hope you would take a minute and just at least consider these options. They are on your terms. We acknowledge and recognize that you are busy school leaders, so you are invited to participate as you can, when you can. We just hope that you would consider them. So I wonder if you could take just a second before I turn the time over to Rachel to talk about evaluation, to look at those opportunities and think about which network you might consider and put it in the chat. Those of you who have been involved as a facilitator or a school leader participant, please do share in the chat so others will know you're available to answer their questions about what your experiences have been in the PPN. Thank you so much. I appreciate you considering this opportunity. We have had super positive feedback from school leaders across the state on the PPNs. Thank you. With that, Rachel.
Hello, I'm Rachel College, Educational Leadership Specialist. I am here to talk a little bit about the evaluation process and ultimately at the end of the year, the submission of your evaluation data. So if I can share my screen, we want to take you step by step through where we are now and throughout the process of your year, where ideally you'll be at the end of the year. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, does everybody see that? Do you see a cactus? It's very exciting. Okay, so here is a cactus that we basically, we wanted to help you ensure that you were able to see the process for getting into cactus, and then there's a step by step is where we are is now, so that you can get into cactus. And we have a resource that I'm going to put in the chat that our director of licensing put together for us. And so let me grab that as well.
Rachel, could you return to the graphic quickly and make it bigger so they can see the 4-step flowers? It was just
Yeah.
tiny.
Let me get this into the chat. Okay. Okay, do you see the graphic now?
It's just really small and now it's shifted.
Oh, it's really small.
Now it's
Okay.
on the agenda.
Okay. So let's see. Does everybody see the graphic now?
No, you're still on the agenda.
Okay, odd. How about now?
Yes, and it's
Oh, that's great.
Sure.
I just need to not be moving things from screen to screen. Okay, awesome.
Rachel, can I also just chime in? This same graphic, I have downloaded the PDF. So I will send that to you with all of the follow-up information from the meeting. So if it is still too small, you will get your very own PDF copy.
I'll make it. Is that big enough now or?
That's a lot better.
Oh, good. Okay. All righty. So we just wanted to go over where we are now. So in the process, we're in this first little flower here, get access to cactus. And in order to do that, we have the document that I shared in the chat. If you click into that document, this is something that was put, our like I say, our director of licensing, Malia Haidt, put together some videos, step-by-step videos to help through this process, as well as the actual links for when you go in to do the process. So that's your resource document. And let me go back over. Okay. So right now you just need to really worry about getting access to Cactus. And in January, request permissions in Cactus to enter evaluation data. By April, gather your summative evaluation data. And by the end of May, submit summative evaluation data for your educators. Alongside that is throughout the year, you're implementing your evaluation plan, inclusive of capturing data in various settings, including through observation, during PLCs, in staff meetings, by gathering communication with and from stakeholders, and of course, throughout the process of your evaluation process throughout the year, providing formative feedback to teachers. So this is just sort of your way of checking yourself throughout the year of what is best practice for evaluation throughout your year. And then along the way, each of these flowers helps give you a little nudge as to where you should be with gathering your evaluation data and then submitting it. So I wanted to go over then, I'll get out of that one and get into, okay. So do you see the Google Doc now, the Access Cactus database as a school administrator? Awesome, okay. So just quickly, these first links are the videos that will take you step by step for each of those processes. And then you have down here, there are the links for the actual sites. Below here is even more videos to help with navigating Cactus. So this is a very robust Cactus training that was just delivered by the licensing team in July, as well as PowerPoint slides that are step by step. So it's a really great resource if you have any Cactus questions. And then she's also included older Cactus training videos, which are great. So in a nutshell, you have the resource document as well as just a graphic to help nudge you along as the year goes on. I know that you have a lot of things coming at you. So we just thought we'd be helpful with trying to help with your timelines and then some resources for you to get into Cactus and then throughout the year be able to submit your data. And I think that is, I will stop sharing, but you have all of those pieces in your, you have all those pieces in your agenda as well, and reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. I do want to address a larger question. Why are we sharing this with you? Those of you who were so great at chasing down your evaluation data at the end of this last school year, thank you, thank you, thank you. It felt just more stressful than it needed to be because many of you as new directors had to go through all of these steps under duress before the June 30th deadline. So our goal is to push into these meetings, thank you, Marie and team, along the way to help you just to go step by step by step, so that when it gets closer to the end of the school year, you can just easily log into Cactus and enter your data without the frustrations that many of you experienced this year. So we apologize for that. We're learning and trying to provide better service for all of you. And as Rachel said, this first step is just to make sure you can get into Cactus. And all of those videos will just walk you through it. If you have any questions at all while you're doing that, please just let us know. We're here to help you. And then hopefully we'll get invited back in December, January-ish with additional just quick and easy and simple directions on how you can make sure you have the permissions within Cactus to actually enter your data at the end of the year. Maybe I'll pause. Are there any quick questions now in the chat or unmute?
Just a comment, the directions for getting into Canvas were not the problem. It was getting the service desk to respond back to us in a reasonable amount of time. So what they sent back to us worked. And they're not being able to talk with somebody means I don't get every day to be able to focus on some of the IT stuff, like getting a password when I have to wait. And that took 2 weeks finally to get a password into Cactus. I can't afford that time. And I know I'm a little longer in the tooth, and it may be my own IT weakness, but that was extremely frustrating. Thank you.
No, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I hear you and understand the concern. Many of you had that challenge that you were doing the best you could to meet the deadline. And we just had these what is the word? Technology issues trying to get you access quickly. So thank you for sharing that. And again, I apologize about the frustration. We are going to do our best to provide these scaffolds to you along the way so that as soon as you submit your data, you can just log off and go home for the summer without getting follow-up emails about the evaluation data submission requirement. So again, we thank you for scrambling to get it done and really appreciate it. And we will be better partners by providing support along the way. Thank you for sharing that. Other questions or comments or requests about evaluation or professional learning or anything else Rachel and I can help you with? All right, we will put our contact information in the chat box in case you think of things. Thank you for all you do. Rachel and I both have experience in the charter world, and we have a ton of respect for what you do every single day. So thank you, and thanks for the invitation to be here.
All right, thank you, Lisa and Rachel. It was always great to have you guys here. Next, we're moving on to school fees. And Tamara Daly was unable to join us today, but never fear, we have Charity Goodfellow and Barbie Faust stepping in for Tamara. And so we will turn it over to Charity and Barbie and look forward to hearing about school fees.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, we gave Tamara a hard time that she wasn't able to make it today, but she had other things come up. So, but it's great to see the cameras on and actually put faces to some of these names as I worked with you guys with the school fees and you've reached out. So that's been kind of fun. So feel free to turn your cameras on. If you have questions, let us know. We just had a couple of things that we wanted to address. We do have a training that's coming up. And so I'm going to share my screen real quick. And then we've got a PowerPoint we can go through here. Okay, can you all see that? Yes, yes, is that what I'm getting? Okay, so for our next training, it'll be this upcoming 24th of September. And We are going to run from 9 to 12 is the time that we've scheduled. Last time we did our training, we let out a little bit early. So we're hoping for the same thing to happen. But if we have a lot of questions that you guys have, that's why we extend the time, just to make sure that we have plenty of time to answer those questions. We sent out a registration link to all of the school fees contacts. And so if you did not receive that, please reach out to your school fee contact. What's happening this year is if you go on and you register for the training online, it will automatically send you that Zoom link. And then you can also, that link to register, you can forward it to whoever it is. It's just an anonymous link. And you can pass it out to anybody in your LEA that needs to attend the training. We will also be having it in person in Basement West. So if you have some specific questions you want to ask, you don't want to attend online, or you just want to be here in the building with us, then you are welcome to come. And if you need directions, then just email us at our school fees email and we can get that to you. Anybody have questions regarding the upcoming training? Okay, if you do, just let us know. And then there are a lot of things that we won't be covering here with you just because we'll be addressing them at the training. But if you do have those questions, let us know so we can get to them with the training. And Barbie will watch the chat. So then she can let me know if we have any questions with that. So one of the first things that we did want to cover is the upcoming requirement regarding textbooks. We know that we're going to be getting a lot of questions with this. And so this starts next school year, is where you cannot charge a fee for a textbook. So that includes selling textbooks to families. And then with that, in the definition in 53G 7602, it also includes the maintenance costs of school equipment. So you cannot pass that on to students as well. You are allowed to charge a textbook fee for AP or CE classes. So if there is a textbook with that, you can pass that on to the students. However, those that are on fee waivers, you do have to waive that fee for that AP or CE textbook. Any questions? So damage to books falls under a different code. If there is damage, you are allowed to reach out to the students, and it's under, trying to remember, 53G, I can't quite remember, but we'll get that code reference to you. And so we will send that off for damage. So personal property damage, that things that have been damaged with students, you are allowed to charge a fee for that. And that is a completely separate code. Yeah, and it does not need to be waived. It's completely separate from a school fee. Chromebooks, that actually is considered a textbook. So that's what I wanted to get into on our next slide, is what is the definition of a textbook. Looks like we also have lost book. If they lose it, I think that falls under the same definition of damaged. So you can charge a fee for lost or damaged. So, oh, I love this. You guys have some great questions rolling in on the chat. Okay, so we'll get to this last one that you asked, Deborah, in just a minute on one of the slides. I want to cover textbook for an instructional material. So textbook is instructional material. Instructional material is a textbook. Those two definitions are linked hand in hand. So if it's necessary for a student to participate in that class, that program, the activity, and you are using it to teach the material, that is a textbook. You cannot charge a fee. So hard copy, that includes your solid textbook, a novel, sheet music, anything that would be considered that you have to instruct those students. That is a textbook. If it is a digital format, then yes, that is a textbook. If you are doing computers where they access that information through the internet, then yes, you've got computer hardware that is covered under that, and it specifically addresses it in code. Computer hardware, software, or digital content is considered a textbook. And yes, we are going to cover the difference between instructional materials, instructional equipment, and instructional supplies, because the instructional equipment and instructional supplies are not included in textbook. So I want you to think of those three terms. You have instructional material, which is a textbook. instructional equipment, and instructional supplies. And they have designated that the computer hardware is considered a textbook because the students have to access, if they're accessing the internet or they're accessing Canvas or where they get the material through that and they need a computer, then that is considered the textbook. Okay, so with that, here's instructional equipment. It is defined as an activity-related, course-related, or program-related tool or instrument that is required for the student to use as part of the course, and it typically becomes the property of the student. So if they're using it during their time and then they can maintain ownership of that after that course or that activity, that is called instructional equipment. So it is not a textbook. However, it is subject to fee waiver. Some examples that we have here, shears or styling tools. So if they have a cosmetology program, band instrument, students will pay an amount for that sometimes, but then eventually the instrument becomes theirs. And so they do get to take that home. Same thing with a camera, stethoscope, sports equipment, if it becomes theirs. So again, the other word is typically. Occasionally you have those where it's rented. Yeah, it looks like we have a question on ownership of laptops. So the question is if a student maintains ownership of the laptop, so the school purchases the laptop, they have access to it, and then they keep the laptop at the end, and it is the students to maintain. Is that? Yeah, I will have to look into that one. Yeah, I don't, just because it's specifically addressed in code, I don't believe that would still meet the definition of instructional equipment because it says computer hardware with textbook. And so this is slightly different than that because a computer necessarily does not have to, I guess you can look at it this way, a textbook, if a student goes in and purchases a textbook, okay, and you have charged them for that amount, a math book, there are times where they would keep it. So you have a workbook. I'll go back to this previous slide. Where you have a consumable workbook, that would stay with the student. They're going to keep that. The pages are going to be used. It's not transferred to the next student, but it is still considered a textbook. It is still instructional material that they're using to teach the content of that course or that activity. The computer hardware would be along the same lines. The student has to have that to access that material, to teach that information. And so when we go on to instructional equipment, the shears or the band instrument is not where the content, where that material is found. It is something that is used in conjunction with that course material, with the instructional material. And so that's how we're defining, how it's defined here in code, is these are used hand in hand with that, but they're not part of that instructional material. Whereas a computer, it is found online, it is there. That is the digital equipment, that is the computer hardware that the student has to access to learn what they need to with that class. Okay, instructional equipment does not include school equipment. And so school equipment is defined as a durable school-owned machine, equipment or tool used by a student as part of an activity, course, or program. So you have the instructional equipment, which is smaller amounts, your shears, your stethoscope, the baseball bat. This is the school equipment. So if several students are accessing a saw or a 3D printer or a microscope, those things are owned by the school and they're maintained by the school. You can no longer charge any cost to maintain the school equipment to the students. That has to be covered by the LEA. Any questions on that? Okay. Instructional supply is the other definition we want you to be aware of. So this is a consumable or non-reusable supply that is necessary for student to use as part of an activity, course, or program. So again, this is separate from that instructional material. They're using this in conjunction with that instructional material. So in the art class, you may have an art textbook, and then you have brushes or art supplies or canvas that you can charge a fee to for that student for attending that class. That fee is still waivable. There's another question here. How do you address the thought that the content is actually in a cloud, not on the computer? The computer is just the equipment used to find that content. So that's a great question. Absolutely great question. So we have, we can have this discussion again, and I can get some more information on the specifics of that. But because it is addressed specifically, computer hardware is defined as a textbook in code. That is what we are going with. And so when a student has that computer, they are using that to access that material. They're using it to get that information to teach that course. That is why they have put it underneath textbook. Instructional equipment, they're saying, is separate from that material, from that side right there. And again, I will look up and I will see if there's any additional information. We can reach out to Deputy Superintendent Stallings and get her feedback, and then have more information for you at the upcoming training. Barbie, did you want to add anything, any thoughts on this?
I don't think so.
You'll have to, they can't hear. Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear Barbie in the background, but she doesn't think it would be both, just based off of how the code and the rule is written. But we'll get more information for you on that. Great question. Another one. Another one we have here is, if students are keeping their literary novels since they are being annotated, does that fall within the definition of equipment or consumable supplies? We actually did ask that question and pass that on up at the chain, because the novels are being used for instruction and for teaching the content of that class. They are considered a textbook, and that fell under the same line as the sheet music in band. It is part of that instruction that is provided to the students to teach them the content of that course. So going back to instructional supply, do we have any questions on the definition of this? So you have the 3D printer that is school equipment. You cannot charge maintenance for that. However, the filament used for the 3D printer, as it is a consumable supply, you can pass that cost on to the students that are using that. However, you have to make sure there's another regulation that was extended from coming into effect this year to next year, is that you cannot charge more than the cost of the item to the students. Had another question, a couple more. Great, guys, keep sending them in. Can a deposit fee, refundable, be charged for technology devices? So yeah, what would the fee be used for, is what we're going to look at. Why are you charging that deposit fee?
This is Hanifi at Beehive. That's my question. What we meant is actually, let's say, if you are giving iPad to the students, so that we charge a small fee as a deposit, just in case, that they have to take care of that device, and if any repair or something comes, or they break or something happens, to be used towards that. If not, it's refunded to them.
Okay, so it sounds like that's going to fall more under insurance on the device. And so there is 53G. Let me see if I can pull this up really quick. So, because there is a section in 53G5 that they do cover the insurance on it. And it is specifically, 53G5 5017 says fee does not include a charge for insurance unless the insurance is required for a student to participate in the activity. So if you have a deposit that is going to cover damage or breakage or anything along those lines that you're offering to the students, and you want to have it be refundable if nothing happens, that is allowed and it's not considered a fee because the student can opt in to do that. So, and that's specifically addressed in code.
How would that apply to maintenance? Because it sounds like it's going to be used for maintenance of the computer, which they can't do.
Right. Well, you can't, because you can have maintenance of school equipment,
Right.
which would fall under textbook. Yeah. So long as, let's say you have a student that does not opt in for the insurance and of no fault of their own, there's damage to the computer, you would not be able to assess that charge to the student. So if the battery is faulty and the student has to turn that in, you cannot pass that on to them. Or at the end of the year when the students turn in their computers and you have to have IT come in and clean out all the devices, make it so that you can hand them out again, you cannot charge that cost onto the students. So if there's outside damage, then you can, there's an insurance that you can tie to that you can charge a fee for if they choose to, but you cannot require it.
So I have a question on that. I have a kindergarten grandson attending a school in a district that is charging them a $25 insurance fee for an iPad for them. This is kindergarten 5-year-olds. They said if he happens to drop it, then the insurance would cover it. But if they don't buy the insurance, and it is required, if they don't buy it, then they would be assessed a $700 fee for an iPad. But these are 5-year-olds. So my question is that an acceptable fee at an elementary kindergarten age?
No, it's not. You cannot require parents to pay that fee for elementary. These are not allowed to be charged in an elementary school.
That's what I understood, but I thought I'd check. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I'm gonna look, there's a couple more questions we've had come in. So printing copies students need to make for a course would be included in instructional supply. Is that something sold? So similar to pens, pencils. So there is also a definition of personal, I'm trying to remember where it was at specifically. So pens, pencils, paper, for those in secondary schools, that is considered student supplies is the definition. And so a student is expected in a secondary school to be able to provide those items. If there are students on fee waivers elementary school, you would provide the pens, the pencils, the paper that would be provided. However,
The student supplies in secondary, I believe it says in there that they are eligible for fee waiver.
correct. Yeah. So if there is a student on fee waiver that is not able to provide the student supplies, they would need to be provided by the school. Let's see. So yes, there's a fee waiver. What about a charge for normal wear and tear, like a rental for regalia? So cap and gown type of items. Because those would not fall under.
Is the question is whether or not it would be fee waivable?
Yeah, is your question whether it would apply to fee waivers or not? Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, it would be fee waivable. So you should be able to assess a charge for regalia, so for graduation, but for those that are on fee waivers, you would have to waive that fee for the wear and tear. Cap and gown for the regalia.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I can charge fee for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can charge a fee for the cap and gown for graduation ceremonies, and for cleaning, but it would have to be waivable for all of those that are on fee waivers. Absolutely. As for As far as the definition of equipment versus supply following the chart of accounts, we'd have to bring Tamara in for that. She's the accountant-minded person. And so we will present that question to her and have it at our training on the 24th. So if you have further questions of how this relates to finance side of it, we can discuss that at the training on the 24th with Tamara. Thank you for the clarification. And if I was wrong, I will find out where I was off. But this is the explanation that is in code and rule that we have put together here. And so with instructional supply, instructional equipment, and the instructional materials, those are the three definitions we want you guys to make sure you are aware of in how we're defining those. So textbook is instructional material. Instructional supply and instructional equipment does not fall under the textbook definition. And then school equipment is its own separate thing, but you cannot charge the maintenance cost of school equipment for that. Yes, we can send the slides to Marie so that she can send those out to you, not a problem at all. Any other questions regarding supply or equipment or textbooks? Okay, then I will have Barbie take over. I will mute mine. Bear with me just 1 minute. All right.
Okay. Oh, you're gonna turn your sound off. And okay. Sorry, we were sitting in the same room.
I know.
How's that? No.
I'm not sure what's going on, Barbie.
Barbie and Charity, that's causing an echo.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what's going on. I will move my computer for whatever reason. Yeah, I turned off the speakers, I muted mine, everything was off and it still had an echo. So we're not sure what was happening. So.
Okay, I'll just talk really loud. How about that? Sorry about that. That's kind of an aggravating sound. We just wanted to cover an issue that came up recently that deals strictly with charters. And it's about volunteer hours that are sometimes requested of parents. We just want to clarify that 53G5403, this is the rule that says that whether or not, actually tells you that you cannot request or demand donation, contribution from a parent as a condition for enrollment. And a lot of times we have seen where the charter schools are requesting parent time, which I know is crucial for charter schools, but we have to be really careful that we don't attach hours to a request, because when you attach a minimum number of hours, this gives the implication that it's required, which doesn't violates this code and also would violate school fees. Right, okay. Clicked it. So if you are going to ask or request parents to volunteer, you got to make sure that it's strictly voluntary, because if you attach time or money to it, that means that that it is a fee. And a fee is something of monetary value that is requested or required for full participation. And full participation would be the enrollment in a charter school. And something of monetary value is money, goods, and services. So again, you're asking a parent to volunteer. And this is either if it's requested directly or indirectly. And also required or requested is either implied explicitly or, you know, just kind of like, well, 30 hours is required or requested for every student to, of our 30 hours of every parent of our students that attend our school. So if you attach a time, number of hours, or the option to buy out your volunteer hours, because we know that parents are busy and sometimes they just rather just pay a fee or pay the money so that they can, you know, pretty much buy their time. But you've got to be extremely clear that it is not required, it is not mandated in any way, and we would suggest that you are required that you don't attach time or to the requirement, because like I said, that gives the impression that is required or necessary for that student.
Question.
What's it say?
What you're saying is that asking parents to volunteer 20 hours per year is a violation.
Yes, it's exactly what we're saying. If you attach a time to a number of hours, then you're kind of giving the impression that it is a requirement. Any other questions?
Barb and Sherry, are you able to see the one right above that one about the 20 hours? There's one above it about annotating text. Are you able to see that question?
Yes, we can see it. Okay, so we will have to get back with you on that one. If you're, I guess my question would be, it's an option. So if a student chooses to purchase it for themselves, then there would be a fee associated with it. But all students would get the text regardless. But if they don't pay that fee, and then that's where it comes back to, if you're offering that, is there a distinction between those who can afford it and those who can't? Are you creating an issue there? And so is there pressure for those students who can't afford to pay that optional fee to keep the book, going to feel like they have to, or they're losing out because they don't have that same ability to annotate? And so those are a lot of things that we want to look at, because the whole reason for school fees is to ensure that we don't have this separation between students who are able to pay for it and have the ability to take care of all these extra things versus those who don't. And so the students that are in a different economic situation lose out on the opportunity. And so with that, the consumable literature, if it's part of the course, like, it should be free for the students. And then if you are wanting to have them annotate it and keep it, it would fall under, see, it's still instructional supplies. And so it creates that issue. So I'm going to say no on that one, just because we're trying to stay away from that distinction of having that segregation in the class. And you have this implied pressure that students now have to pay for that if they want to have that ability to annotate and participate in the class in that way.
Because then they wouldn't be able to fully participate like the other students.
Yeah.
So I have one other question. I wondered if in our school, we request 40 hours a year, but we also make it very clear that all students have the same opportunities regardless of who volunteers that or doesn't volunteer it. Same with PTO dues, that kind of thing. It doesn't matter who pays and who doesn't. Everybody still gets the same exact educational program. It's just to help us out if they would like to. If we make it that clear, is that acceptable?
I would take off the number of hours. Just, we request that parents volunteer because this is how our charter school functions, and it's benefits the student. But really take the number of hours off, because like I said, that It gives an implication that it's necessary, even though you attach the word voluntary or donation, it still implies that it's necessary for the student to participate.
Okay.
So there's another question here. Is what if well, there's a couple of questions. Can you see those, Barbie, or do you want me to read them?
Go ahead and read.
Okay, so the first is, so not to suggest, no suggestion or request, parents do not do any volunteer time with the school.
So to not
Suggest or request parents volunteer any time with the school.
Oh, you can suggest a request, just don't attach minimum hours to it or a dollar value. Just say, we'd like parents to volunteer. Just don't attach hours to it.
Yeah,
and then you're giving it a minimum amount, like a minimum of 4. It's like, oh well, I guess I have to give 4 hours of volunteer.
And then it comes back to that other code where it's this one of, at what point does it affect their participation in the school? And so if a student is feeling that implied pressure, or a parent, to participate in volunteering those hours, and that there's going to be a consequence from it if they don't meet that minimum hours of the 20 hours, the 40 hours, the 4 hours a month, that's where, when there's a violation with this one, the 53G5, then it runs into where is it with the school fees. And so these kind of run hand in hand, is you want to make sure that there is not any type of misunderstanding or implied pressure for the parents to meet that. We're not saying that you can't ask them to volunteer, because we know as charter schools that having parents be a part of that is one thing of, it is crucial to you, but you cannot have those requirements or that implied pressure that they have to do this. And again, it comes down to, there are families that can afford to do it. The parents have time, they're available. And there are those that can't, that their schedules are such that they cannot participate in the way and volunteer. And so you're creating this distinction. And that's what we're trying to get away from, is that the essence of separating those students from those who have and those who don't. One more question. What if there's no pressure at all on enrollment or participation to suggest or request parents volunteer at school? Is it just the suggestion of a set number of hours? Do we need to keep records of the amount of hours parents do volunteer? We kind of answered that, except for the records.
If you're not requesting a certain number of hours, why would you be tracking them? To what purpose are they recording the hours? Because if you're asking for them to donate time, it comes back that it would be a fee, and then it would have to be on your fee schedule. It had to be go through the board to be approved.
Well, and then it violates.
Then it violates this charter school rule. We used to ask 15.
Okay, so the records of tracking that, you may have to, I don't know if Marie or Jennifer, if you guys have feedback on that one specifically with recording volunteer hours.
There's no requirement for that. So it's one less thing to have to keep track of. So thumbs up for everyone.
So who's asking for the volunteer hours?
The 501c3. So that would be separate.
Oh, to keep track of their taxes. Oh. I don't know.
Yeah, so because that's going to fall under tax regulations and the 501c3, and We're school fees. I don't know on
You could
that one.
probably,
Yeah.
you could probably track it, but it wouldn't be, you couldn't require the number of hours per parent.
Yeah.
You could track it, but that's nothing against school fees. But
I believe some of the 501c3 would refer to the school's governing board. And so talking to them.
Okay, so yeah, that's what we're getting a lot of here. It's falling under the 501c3. So, so long as you don't have those minimum hours, and it is clear that, hey, this is completely voluntary. You know, there's no consequence to students, anything along those lines, then you would just track. I mean, you could have parents sign in and track when they do volunteer, but there wouldn't be, other than reporting to your 501c3, there's not anything within school fees or the state charter school board that you would have to submit those hours to. Now, what if you do a raffle and people get a ticket each time they volunteer? And at the end of the year, we draw a ticket. If their ticket is drawn, they may get a gift card. Is that acceptable? Maybe monthly. Again, does this create further issues? Is it creating a situation where you're going to distinguish between those who are able to volunteer and those who are not? And is it affecting student participation in any type of an activity? So those are the questions we want you guys to ask when you're looking at motivating factors in getting parents to volunteer. So, and again, it comes down to that implied pressure of, you know, there's in the 53G, I do like the wording here. It says to demand or request a gift or donation. And so at what point is it becoming that?
yeah. And a donation becomes a fee when it is required for participation.
Yeah. All right. So can we set a goal-wide goal or a school-wide goal for numbers of hours we record for our tax engagement metrics? Is it problematic to have a goal rate of overall volunteerism?
I don't think that would be, as long as an individual parent or student's not identified. I think if you were doing it as a school-wide and the individual student's not identified, I think you'd be okay.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, because that, again, it's not singling out any individual family or situation. It's, hey, everybody is a school. This is what we're shooting for. And you just maintain those hours. Yeah, that.
You just got to be careful about how you, so that you don't identify anybody in your record keeping for the general other students, other parents. You know, your office staff may know who's volunteered and can keep track of that, but that's not just common knowledge. That'd be the same principle for if somebody was on fee waiver, you don't have that out for everybody to see, and you could do the same type of record keeping for volunteer hours.
And so long as it's not affecting enrollment or participation in the school. So yeah, okay, we've had a bunch more roll in. Let me look at these. For many of us, the recommended volunteering hours with the suggested number sit in the school's charters. I do know this is discussion that we did have with the state charter school board, and the response back was that, yes, that should not be a part of the charter with the required hours. So
can I speak up? This is Jennifer.
Yes, Jennifer, please.
I also did respond to this. So state law always trumps whatever's in your charter. So if you have something in your charter that is against state law, or if state law changes and so it can no longer be the case, then you have to follow what is in law. So if it is in your charter, you still have to follow state law about the about suggesting and asking for a number of hours. Even if it's in your charter agreement, you have to follow state law. Does that make it clear for everyone?
Thanks, Jennifer.
I don't think just one quick thing. I don't think it's a matter of do we have to follow it. It's just that it is suggested in there, and in many it does suggest a number of hours. So, we'll be in compliance with state law, but to rewrite a whole charter because of that, that's my question. Is that a requirement from the state charter school board that the whole thing be written because of it has a suggested number of hours, not required, but suggested?
So what we would do in that case is we would know that state law trumps what is in that charter. So that part of the charter now becomes defunct. So you don't, you would never have to rewrite your entire charter to just get rid of one piece. You could just amend just to get rid of that one piece if you so desire. And I would encourage you that if you feel that your charter is out of date and maybe needs to be relooked at, to do that. But we would, of course, not hold you to something that by law you can't do.
Thank you. These are great questions. Okay, we've had a couple others regarding buyout service hours. That's when it becomes a fee. And so if you have volunteer hours and all of a sudden a parent can purchase to get out of it, then it is a fee and it ties into these, and you cannot charge that. And that's where it kind of is a loop. And so buyout, you cannot do buyout service hours.
They can do a donation. Obviously, a parent can make a donation, but it can't be tied to any kind of participation criteria, or because then it's a fee and it has to go through the whole process and then violates the charter school rule. So like it's a vicious circle.
Yeah, and I know we've only got a couple minutes. So there was one more question about student activities. What specifically, Jason, were you meaning regarding the questions that you have here on funding student activities and tickets for dances?
Sure. So a general student activity fee that essentially provides funds for the student government to run activities during the year. And also like dances or games, when there's a ticket that students need. Is that a fee? Are those considered core to school activities since school has a social component?
Those are considered fees and are fee waivable. And so
how do school districts that are doing millions of dollars of tickets, how are they doing this, or are they doing this?
So there's several different ways that we know of that schools have been handling it. One, all students are given an activity card, and if they have paid the fee, then it shows up that they've paid for that on their activity card. They show it at the door. For those on fee waivers, it's same thing. It's just handled at the office, and so all the students have to do is show up with their activity card. Another option that we have heard is that they pay it through the office, or for those on fee waiver, again, they have to go into the office, they give a name, and then it's handled at the office for those. So there's no distinction between those on fee waivers and those that are not. Did that clarify, or do you still have a question regarding that?
Right. Well, this has been a really robust discussion. So I know we've gone a little over on school fees, but we have really appreciated having Charity and Barbie here. So thank you so much for taking all those questions. I do see more questions still coming in. So if you have a question, we are going to move on in our agenda. But feel free to message Charity or Barbie if you guys want to include your contact information, or we can also look at, inviting them back next month. It was a really good discussion. So thank you everyone for your attention and engagement. And thank you, Barbie and Charity, for taking all the questions today. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Lindsay Janes here, who's going to talk about the October data submission. Lindsay, thank you. I know we're running a little behind schedule, but we'll turn the time to you and look forward to hearing about October data submission. Lindsay, I think you're muted.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, sorry, can you guys see that? Not yet. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I am here to talk about the October data submission for Utrex. Okay, so what is the October data submission? And so I should preface also, I'm going to be talking more about the kind of the policy side of things rather than the technical side that your Utrex individuals will deal with. But feel free to ask any questions if you have them. So R277 484 requires LEAs to submit data to USBE 3 times a year. And if you look on 484.2, it gives a definition down on number 11. And then in 484.3, it actually provides those dates. They're in board rule. So October 1st data, the deadline is 5 p.m. on October 7th. December 1st data is 5 p.m. on December 7th, and year-end data is 5 p.m. on July 7th. And we don't just have that day for you to submit the data. We actually typically open the window at least a week before. So you have about a week to submit the data. I know for October, it's opening September 27th for you to submit your October 1 data. And you can submit it at any point. If you submit before October 1, if your data obviously changes by October 1, you'll need to resubmit before the October 7th. But that's to give you guys about a week and a half to submit your data. It's submitted to Utrecht through your SIS system, and there you have to have an approved SIS system. And that is also in 484 as well. It has our the guidelines for having an approved SIS system. Also on our website, you can find the approved systems. The most common: Aspire, Power School, Skyward. You guys all have them, so I'm sure you know what they are. If the 7th falls on a weekend or a holiday, then the due date automatically becomes the next business day. So last year, deadline was on Columbus Day, and that is technically a state holiday. So then the deadline was then moved to Tuesday. So if that ever happens on October 7th ends up being Columbus Day, then the deadline would then become October 8th. While all data being submitted should be accurate at all times, there are certain items that have a greater focus based on the time of year. And so now I'm going to go over kind of what we look at in October. So in October, we look at enrollment counts. We look at the foreign exchange student counts, especially the status J students, because those have certain allotments by LEA. So that is something we look at to make sure that you're not over your allotment. The economically disadvantaged indicator. So in the SIS, you might have a further breakdown of if the student's on a reduced lunch or free lunch, or if they're economically disadvantaged. We don't see that because of the sensitivity of that indicator. All we get from the SIS is just a 1 or a 0 if that student is economically disadvantaged. Other things we look at are district of residence errors and valid address warnings, SSID warnings. So the SSID warnings will be things like this SSID is associated with a student with a different first and last name or with a different birth date, things like that. And at that point, we ask our Utrecht individuals to just double check and make sure that that SSID is not already in use. And if it is, then obviously to make that correction. English learner counts, cohort high school completion statuses and exit codes, cohort reassignment for those on path to the alternate diploma. I need to change that, sorry. And event dropout rate for our special education students. This year we have an additional one. So usually we focus on special education data in December, but due to the current investigation by Office of Civil Rights concerning the mask mandates, I know Superintendent Dickson mentioned it, we are required to provide OCR with special education counts actually within the next couple of weeks, which is before our October deadline. But we have been told that we can give it to them as soon as we have our October data. So because of that, we really need the special education data to be accurate for October so that we're giving that correct information over to Office of Civil Rights. Okay, so why are these items important for October? So most of the items we look at in October are specifically tied to funding for your LEA. For example, the enrollment and the foreign exchange counts. October also is the last opportunity to submit correct completion status data for students that were in the graduating cohort from May or June. So at this time, you should be submitting corrections for the 2021 cohort. And this is something that the last couple of years, I think our Utrecht individuals knew about it, but it maybe wasn't getting the word out to everyone else. And after our October deadline had already passed, we were hearing from LEAs that they needed to make changes or were trying to make changes in December. And at that point, it's too late. October 1 data is your timeline to submit these corrections. So graduation rate preview files were sent through Move It this summer, and it's also available on Data Gateway. And we have let assessment directors and oh my gosh, Utrecht administrators, and I believe also one was sent out to superintendents and directors, that report is available, and it's something you should be checking to make sure that it's correct. If it's not, then now is the time to make changes. Any changes not made in the October submission won't be reflected in your four-year graduation rates. And then the cohort reassignment that we look at, it only applies for students who are marked as 1% and are working towards that alternate diploma. These students have to be marked as 1%, and it has to be indicated in their IEP that they're working towards this diploma. And otherwise they're not eligible. We had a couple LEAs this past year that thought the alternate diploma or the RA reassigning the cohort was available for any student, and it's not. It actually has to be in their IEP, and they have to have a significant cognitive disability where they're marked as 1%. Okay, so if you need to make corrections to your completion statuses or your exit codes, you're looking at your preview report and you see something incorrect. There are two ways that this can happen. S1x Records is the first way, and these are created in your SIS system and submitted through Utrecht. You essentially create a record for that student for the year, but you set their resident status to X, and then you put in the correct high school completion status and you put in the correct exit code, if there is one. And then the X, basically, you will keep that record in there through the October submission. When you finalize your data, that X tells the system to update the last record in your LEA. This only works if the student's not enrolled in your LEA for the current year, because it's going to update the most recent record. So this is only applicable for students that are no longer enrolled in your LEA, which works for most situations with your students that graduated in the spring. Historical updates is the other option, and this is the option only for students who are still enrolled in your LEA. So we often see this with your continuing students, your special ed students, that would be why you would need a historical update. Historical updates, you go into Data Gateway, and there is under tools, under the Utrecht section in tools, you can get to historical updates. You need to provide us as much information as possible. And then we on the data and statistics team have to go through and decide if that's something that should be approved or not. If it is, we create a ticket for our IT team to manually update that change in our system. And this works for students who are still enrolled in your LEA because we can make that change and not influence their current record. Okay, after the submission, you want to make sure to download and save the Data Gateway reports for that Utrecht submission. So if you go onto Data Gateway and you're under Utrecht reports, we actually have a set of reports for October, for December, and for year end. And you want to download those October reports. This is something we tell our Utrecht representatives each submission, and many fail to do so. And we actually had a problem after year end where we had schools that weren't displaying on the reports that we needed our IT team to fix first. And our IT team has been working on that, and we're not able to work on the archived reports because we had to fix this issue first. And we had LEAs then that auditors showed up and needed to audit these LEAs, and they hadn't downloaded the reports and had nothing to give the auditors. So it's really, really important to make sure that those reports get downloaded in case something like this happens. So we have that issue fixed at this point, and now the archived reports are getting prepared to be populated for year end. But it's just something good practice to make sure you download those reports so you don't get put in that bind and having to try to figure out what to do. It's not something we have access to once a new submission happens. And if you have a question about any of your finalized data, you can always reach out to the data and statistics team. And I'll add on that contact information before I send this over to Marie. Okay, so some new fields that just for you to be aware of. New attendance fields, these were required by Utah Code 53G6206. And they actually, Utrecht started accepting these at the end of the 2021 school year. Any LEA that was ready to submit those could start submitting. The three fields are unexcused absence for half a day or more, excused absence for half a day or more, or absent for half a day or more due to suspension. These will be required to submit by the year end for the 2022 school year. So that is something that at this point your LEA should be ready to submit, and you will need to submit for the end of this school year. And then the last new fields, we have our early numeracy fields. This came through Utah Code 53E4307.5 and then Board Rule R277406. And this was the addition to the early mathematics assessments in addition to the early literacy assessments. So there are 4 fields that should be able to be collected through Utrecht by the end of this school year. And it's early numeracy status beginning of year, early numeracy status mid-year, early numeracy status end of year, and early numeracy intervention. So for the beginning of year, mid-year, and end of year, basically what it is it's a 1-letter code telling us where your student's record is, if that makes sense. I'll explain a little further. Most of the options are explaining why your student didn't test when we would expect them to test. So this is where you would put if the student opted out of this numeracy assessment, if the parent opted the student out of the numeracy assessment, if the student was somewhere else during the testing session, they weren't enrolled in your LEA at that time, but they are at the end of the year, then there's a code for that. If your student took an alternate assessment, we have some alternate assessment codes that you would enter. If your student was just not tested for no other reason, they just weren't tested, we have an untested code. And then we also have codes where you can put they were tested and they were on grade level, or they were tested and they were not on grade level. And basically what that does is that helps fill in our vendor files that we get. We get the results, but if we don't have a result for your student and we would expect one to be there, we don't know why, and that will influence your participation rate. So these codes help us decide what students should be included in the participation rate or not. If they were somewhere else, or if they took an alternate assessment, obviously they shouldn't be included in your denominator, and we don't want to include them. So making sure that those fields are in is very important. And then the early numeracy intervention, it's a yes or no field. And it basically asks, at any point during the year, did this student receive an intervention for mathematics? These mirror the early literacy ones. We ask these same questions at each 3 testing sessions of the year and for the intervention. So your Utrex administrator will be familiar with these. They're the exact same. The only thing is that we added one additional code for the numeracy, which is a modified code. And that is if the test was modified in a way that we can't have it as a valid test result, but it was modified due to an IEP. And that just tells us that that's why there's a partial test result and not a full test result. Originally, this was supposed to start last year, but the legislature allowed it to be postponed 1 year due to COVID. And that is all I have. I have included all the board rules in the notes, so I'll send this to Marie for her to send to you guys, and the links to the board rules and the code will all be in there. Do you guys have any questions?
Lindsay, do you see the one question in the chat? I'll read it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Fields for numeracy and Aspire at this point for Utrecht to collect, or if they're not in there quite yet, when can they expect that?
Great question. So they are not yet in Aspire. We are actually in the very beginning stages. So at our September meeting, it's on September 23rd, where we'll meet with the Utrex individuals. And at that point, we will be giving them the SIF mapping and the SIF objects. And what that is that's what they pass on to their SIS system. And that allows them to build the connection from their SIS system to our Utrecht system to send that data. So that is the first step, and that will be given, our IT team is finishing that up, and we will give that out at our September 23rd meeting. And then at that time, our IT team will then actually start building in those fields in Utrecht to be accepted simultaneously while the SIS systems are building those fields. And then we're hoping, around like shortly after the start of the second semester that we'll be at that point. But if not, then we'll let you guys know, and we'll keep our Utrecht administrators updated if something changes. But that's the goal, is that we'll have some time before the end of your submission that this is working, so that Utrecht submissions can start accepting it. Utrecht submissions, the guideline is for submissions to be done daily, and you can actually set up scheduled collections. Your Utrecht administrators probably know this. They can set up scheduled daily collections. So every day or night, it automatically is making that submission to Utrecht. And at that time, once it's there and it's in your SIS system, then we'll be able to see it and make sure that those things are going through. Any other questions?
There was one more that came through. They're asking if Aspire will automatically code half-day versus full-day absences based on what they enter into attendance for each student.
That is a good question. I do not know. I don't have too much knowledge on Aspire. I'm more just work on the Utrecht end, but I can pass that on to our Aspire team and get back to Marie with that answer.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll get back. Okay, see, anything else?
That's it. So thank you so much, Lindsay. We appreciate your presentation, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, if you have been following along on our agenda, next we have our after-school programs grants. However, there was a conflict that came up today, and so that conversation has been postponed. But I wanted to let you know we will definitely circle back to that. I had a really great meeting with that team, and there were so many different grants for after-school programs that are available to charter schools that I don't think at least when I was a director, I wasn't always aware of those. So we'll definitely circle back to that, but it will not be today. So we are moving ahead, and we have Tracy Van Deventer here, and she is going to be talking about the West Ed Call Survey. You've probably seen some emails about that. So she's going to just give us some more information on that. When she finishes, then I've got our in case you missed it section, and then we'll get wrapped up for today. So we'll turn it over to Tracy and let you share about the West Ed Call Survey. Tracy, I think you're
before I even
there.
like
You
get
go.
talking,
There
I'm
you
going to
go.
unmute myself. You would think after how many times we've been on Zoom that we would finally get that down. I wanted to just read my mind, that it turns off when I actually think about it. Listen, before we even get to the place where we're sharing some screens, I want to give you just a second to like bend your neck the other way, stretch. Come on, you've been listening to Aspire in Utrecht. People, I know what you've been going through, and this is the end of a long meeting. So, whew, come on, shake it out just a little bit. Come on. All right, here we go. We're going to be talking about something that's free. I love that. Usually costs about $3,500, $4,000, but the state of Utah has been able to get some of these licenses to be able to support schools across the state in using something called the West Ed Call. And I'm telling you, this is better than sliced bread. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you, give you just a peek, a little inside into this program. So you should see the slides where it says West Ed Call. I see a couple friends, give me thumbs up. All right, thank you so much. So did I already mention that this is free? We love free. Come on, people. We love free. And this is your chance to get in. So we rolled this out first to our TSI schools, Targeted Support and Improvement Schools. We have 448 schools across the state, but not everybody took us up on this opportunity. And we have some licenses left, and we want to make sure you know about it. Now, if you are not a Title I school, if you are not a school that's in CSI, TSI, turnaround, or other kinds of designations, this might not be the best opportunity for you. However, I know you can still get the license. It might not be the best fit for you on this round because the funding that's set aside is for those schools that are in designation of turnaround, CSI, TSI, and Title I, even Target Assist Title I. And because of that, did I say, let me just one more time tell you, this is free for you guys. And this is amazing opportunity. So if you've already said, no, I don't think I want to do it, I want you to change your mind right now, because this is really going to be something going to knock your socks off. Before I get too far into the actual identification of what it takes for call, I want to remind you that if you're not TSI, you could be. It could be happening because it is for 2 consecutive years of a student group who's in the lowest 5%. And these are the student groups. So if you have 10 or more kids in your school that are Hispanic or speak a different language, or they're students with disabilities or Pacific Islander, or even if you happen to have 10 or more kids who are Caucasian, by the way, that is a student group. And if they are performing in the lowest 5% for 2 consecutive years, your school will then be designated as a TSI, Targeted Support and Improvement. And if you don't get those groups out of that identification, then you're going to actually become a CSI school. So you don't want to go there. So let's use the CSI also, even if you're not a TSI. Let's use the call right now to make sure that you are not going to become one of those designated schools. Jumping ahead, we're looking at 4 domains of rapid school improvement, and the 4 domains is all of the framework we use across the state of Utah for improvement efforts. So we've got turnaround leadership, talent development, instructional transformation, and we have culture shift. Now, I wonder, have you ever wondered when you're thinking about your school, do we have rigorous evidence-based instruction? Is that going on in my school? Or do you ever wonder, are my students and families really engaged right now in our goals and our work? Do you ever find yourself just wondering, hey, are we doing a good job, good enough at monitoring short and long-term goals? These are the kinds of questions that you will get answered by taking this call. So here's the second piece of good news. Besides that it's free, you only need 30-ish minutes in a faculty meeting to get this reporting and feedback sent directly to you. And you can do it in the fall, so it's kind of a baseline. And then you can do it again in the spring as you're getting ready for your school improvement plan. And honestly, I went through it and took the survey. It took me like 32 minutes, and that's because I might be a little bit of a slow reader and a slow clicker. So you can get this taken care of during that time with your faculty and get the answers answered. Now, when I was an administrator, I also had this wonder in my head. They're nodding their head, they're smiling at me. It looks like they agree, but I don't know what kind of conversations are taking place in the parking lot, right? So there are times when your staff is having conversations and they may not be choosing to share with you all the ways that they have insights about the work going on in your school. This can help also find out, because the results come to you anonymously, but you can use that then to help drive the work that you're going to be doing with your improvement efforts. Again, it's based on the 4 domains of rapid school improvement with WestEd. And really all 4 of these are essential: turnaround leadership, talent development, instructional transformation, and culture shift. And if you don't have all 4 of these, you have kind of a wobbly stool, because you won't get too far if your instruction isn't strong. You won't get too far if your talent doesn't feel like they're supported and that they're being honored. Of course, if you don't have strong leaders, things aren't going to work well. And even going down to the culture, you need to have that culture solid and in place. And this is going to be an insight for you on how to figure out, where are you? Where are we doing well? And where do we need some help? This is what it looks like after you've had your staff pull together and do a survey, again, about 30 minutes. When you get that finished, you'll get these results immediately. If you have multiple campuses, you could think of this as like Super Academy, elementary Super Academy, secondary Super Academy online, or at different campuses across the state. And these are different campuses or different schools across the top. Now, this is the 4 domains here: turnaround leadership, talent development, instructional transformation, and culture shift. And it shows here how your school or schools would be doing compared to the national average. And in this case, Lincoln Elementary here is struggling in the darker red in a couple of areas. They're a little below the average. And then in this turnaround leadership 1.3 practice, they're 3.15. They're above the state average. Down here, this campus actually is really starting to knock it out of the park. They have moved above average in all areas except for talent development 2.2, but they know specifically where to focus their efforts. And one piece that's nice as well is if you happen to be like King Elementary right here, this 3rd one, they're struggling, right? They've got some areas where they need to focus and they need to work. And even though these areas are the most red and are the ones where they're struggling the most, what's nice about the call is that you're going to receive coaching and feedback specifically about where to start making changes in order to have improvement in your building with school performance. Because it might not be that this 2.2 is the one where you want to start your efforts. It might be over here in 3.1 that's the one that's going to give you the most bang for your buck. So it's going to be so powerful for you to have this feedback, and you're going to be able to act on it immediately. This is what it looks like when you see your results for your building and you have a specific practice. You'll see, in this case, 1.1, you'll see where your school is, you'll see where it compares to the call average. You'll also be able to see where your teachers think you are, where the administrator thinks you are, and where your paraprofessionals think that you are. And what's nice here on this side is you've got the list of those key practices that are identified, but you can click on this button and it's going to pop up suggestions and strategies for you to start working on immediately. And to me, that was really, that was always a struggle. I was doing everything I knew how as a building leader. I used all the strategies that I had in my pocket. I was trying everything I knew, and I would have loved to have had a list of strategies specific to areas where I knew my building was struggling and needed some support. So really, why would you want to use the West Ed call? Because you get diagnostic data right away around those 4 domains. You get to measure and see across this year how your distributed school leadership is taking place, not just the principal, not just the director, all of the leadership that's taking place. You're going to be able to see the survey results, and you can dig even deeper into the survey. So when I showed you, for instance, that we saw teachers don't think things are going quite as well here, you can even pull that apart even more and find out my teachers who are in their first 3 years, they think we're doing better than those teachers who've been with teaching in our building maybe for 10 or more years. And you can even dig deeper into some of those patterns. So it's going to give you those ability to interpret those survey results immediately. From there, you can get your action plan going, specifically, following up with what your leadership is and recommendations with those strategies they provide you. And you'll get support from USBE and your actual portfolio coaches in implementing action plans based on these results. So here's the deal, folks. We need you to sign up. Now, we had hoped to have all of the licenses distributed, but bonus for you guys, we got some left, and this is your chance. I'm going to be posting in right now, actually, how you can sign up. You could sign up today, right now, before you hang up. You can sign up and secure your license. So I'm putting it in the chat as we speak. I'm going to stop sharing. No, let's see. Here we go. Don't want it to be just a Marie. There it is. That's how you're going to actually sign up for this survey. And this contact form just tells us that you are confirming your participation. If you need a little time, you can do that. We've got through September to be able to fill up these remaining slots, but I really wanted to make sure we had more charter schools involved, because the charter schools, I think, sometimes are underrepresented. Our districts have a lot of resources. They have a lot of coaches. They have a lot of leaders at their district office. And the charters, you guys, sometimes are out there without all of those levels of support. And that's why the call is even more powerful for you guys, because you'll get some coaching from not only your portfolio managers, but also from the state office folks that are assigned to support you as well. So here's some contact information, and I'm going to let you see that. And before that, I'm going to copy one more link for you. So after you sign up, then I want you to, I want you to go and dig around in this link. It's going to actually let you see sample questions about the call. It's going to let you see some of the reports. You can click on the links within there. It's going to give you more information than you maybe wanted, but I'm telling you, this is the deal of the century. And I'm not just blowing smoke, even though I talked very fast. I knew I had to talk fast because I think I'm the last guy on the list here, right?
Close. I'm closing us out with some announcements, but you did great, Tracy. I think it is exciting. I know it's exciting, but are there any questions that anyone has while we have Tracy on the line here?
"30 minutes free." Immediate feedback. Coaching.
Well, hopefully, Tracy, the lack of questions is everybody rushing to get signed up right now.
Jamie Christensen signed up. Jamie, what school are you in?
Spectrum Academy.
Excellent.
This sounds like what a fabulous opportunity. Thank you. This is
very
wonderful.
Good. Thank you so much. Okay, we are excited to hear you guys later. We'll follow up. Thanks, Jamie, for leading the pack and making sure you get signed up. And my email, let me send you my email. It's on that last slide, but I pulled that down. So And you can also talk to Marie, and you can talk to William, and you can talk to your portfolio managers because they've been sending information out to you as well. Very good. So again, we've got it for our Title I, our Targeted Assist, TSI, CSI, Turnaround. All you guys just sign up. We need you. We want to make sure and fill up our remaining slots with our charter friends. I just sent my email also then into the chat. Thanks, Marie, for this chance to share.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. And we look forward to having as many schools join us as we can. So thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll see ya. All right, to wrap us up, we will just go to our in case you missed it section here. All right, let's see from the current slide. Okay, so here are some important things to be aware of this month. First and foremost, welcome to September. Our September newsletter did come out. You might notice that it looks a little different. In case you hadn't heard, James Madsen has left our office. And so, have new editors making everything look nice in the newsletter. So make sure you read that and check out the great articles and the calendar in there. Everything is updated for you. Ucap projections are open. Those are open from September 1st to October 1st. As a reminder, you're projecting for fiscal year 23, which is school year 22-23. So get out those crystal balls and make those projections of where your enrollment is going for school year 22-23. Jennifer alluded to this in her beginning announcements, but our OEK grant, that's the Optional Enhanced Kindergarten Grant, has been reopened. We had a really exciting problem for the first time ever where we received more funding than we had received applications for the OEK grant. And so we're reopening that. That was what our board directed us to do at our board meeting last week. And we would love to be able to get all of those funds allocated. At this point, we're still sifting through all those applications. If you would like to apply, if you haven't applied yet, please get that in. If you only applied for one classroom and you want to apply for two, you can get those in. If you did already submit an OEK grant application, you don't need to do anything else at this point. We do have those applications. If you're not sure and you would like to check, just shoot me an email and I can check that for you. As a reminder, OEK funds can only be used for full day kindergarten, extra hours, or other means. And when you if you select other means, you do have to be specific in your application as to what those other means are. It is a funding of $30,000 per classroom. So if you are running 2 full day programs, you could apply for 2 classrooms and potentially receive $60,000 to help with that. So again, our deadline, it's a real quick turnaround because we want to get those funds out as soon as possible. September 24th by 5 p.m. in Ucap. And then we are planning to have those awards on consent for the State Charter School Board to review at their October meetings. So we will get that out to you as soon as possible. We also had some notes about kindergarten students. Please make sure that you are coding them correctly in your SIS systems. And there was also a email sent out about gathering letters of support if you're interested in funding for full day kindergarten on an ongoing basis, not just the OEK, but actually funding full day kindergarten here in Utah. If you are wanting to write that letter of support, Christine Elegante at USVE is the one that is collecting those. And she has asked if those can be turned in by September 15th. She did say that the couple of charter letters she received already moved her to tears. It was really great information. So she would love to get that from you. If you have questions on your SIS coding, she can also help with that. So her email is here, christine.elegante@schools.utah.gov. Again, we'll send out the recording and the PowerPoint with all that information. We also wanted to make you aware of the upcoming SCSB trainings. These are the ones that are specifically for September. Our board and leadership training this month is combined, and it will actually be led by our executive director, Jennifer Lambert, as well as our SCSB board chair, Delana Tonks. And that should be a really great conversation about the board staff partnership. That will be September 28th in the morning from 9 to 10 a.m. That is when our governing board monthly meeting will normally be occurring. And so we are inviting our directors to join in that conversation as well, and to join us for a training about a board staff partnership. This month, we're also kicking off our teacher training. We have one about easy formative assessments, and that will be taught by our very own staff member, Andrew Vardas Doan. And that will be September 30th from 4 to 4:45 p.m. So hopefully that gives them enough time to finish up carpool, grab a drink, and come log on. It's all virtual. All of these trainings are, and it should be a fun information session for your teachers. So please make sure they're aware of that. And then finally, our business and finance training this month is going to be about contracts, procurement, and policies for business administrators. And we have member Eric Olson from the State Charter School Board, who has a legal background, who is going to be providing that training to our business administrators. He'll share some do's and some don'ts, as well as some pitfalls to avoid. That is still on September 29th. I did highlight it because there was a time change. Previously, we had announced it at 3 o'clock. It'll actually be 1 to 2 p.m. For this month. A few other things to make you aware of. At USBE, they're working on a front desk 411 project. And so this is a project led by USBE to provide training, support, and resources for your front office professionals at your school. And so right now they're developing this cute little avatar who's going to be doing some training. And you can see here the areas of focus. They're going to talk about cumulative folders, transfer protocols, different scenarios that the front office might encounter when working with parents, students, and community members. They're going to talk about SSIDs and why data accuracy matters, custodial issues, and then the record retention and destruction. So if you have a really stellar front office person that you are interested in having them have a voice in developing some of these trainings for Utah schools, John Lyman is over this at USBE. His email is here, john.lyman@schools.utah.gov, and he would love to get connected with your fantastic office professionals. Also, we are accepting applications for our charter application readers. So if that's something that you are interested in helping with, we're just right now gathering names of those who are interested in possibly helping with that. So that you kind of have an idea what you're committing to. A charter application reader, they will receive the applications for the schools that have been invited to apply for that brand new charter status. We have 3 schools currently in that process. You would have a few-hour training at the end of October about how to do that application review. You would have the applications for the month of November and about the beginning of December for your review. Usually that second week of December, we would have a feedback meeting where we come and make sure that we've come to a consensus on the feedback that is going to be given to those applicant schools. And then in January, there is a short presentation that the charter application reader team gives to the State Charter School Board regarding their feedback and their recommendations to the applicant groups. So if that's something you're interested in, please send me an email with your name and any areas of expertise. So if you have worked with STEM schools or art schools, or you have an early childhood background, any of those things that gives you some different areas of expertise beyond being a school leader, we would love to consider you for our charter application reader process. We did want to make you aware of the other trainings that are coming up that are not the ones done by the State Charter School Board members and staff. Tomorrow is our big kickoff with EBP, which is the Education Board Partners Group. And this is our Leadership Academy Session 1. We've had, I think, about 40 board members sign up to participate in really excited to get in and do some really good board governance development. Then we have a number of events coming up with UAPCS. I'm sure you can see them here, but just so that they're on your radar, on the 14th, there's ACES, that's that Aspiring Charter Executive Seminar. So if you have some great individuals that are looking to get into leadership positions, we would love to invite them to come to part 1 for administrators. There's a fall convening happening on the 16th. On the 21st, there is a school culture training specifically about school culture for teachers that it'll be done for administrators. So they'd love to have you attend that. On the 21st, as well as October 4th, there are some board member trainings about governance and management, as well as board calendar and structure. On the 5th, there's a training for administrators about collaboration and running successful PLCs, as well as committee training for board members. And then on the 12th, there's the ACES, the Aspiring Charter Executive Seminar, part 2. And again, that's for your aspiring leaders or those who would like a refresher on some administrative best practices. There's also monthly book clubs that are happening. So if you need any information on those, feel free to reach out to Joy Lynn or shoot me an email and I can get you in touch with her as well. Finally, wanted to make you aware, there is a survey that's going to be coming out. If you are just tapped out and this is not something you have the bandwidth for right now, that is totally okay. But this survey was developed by UCEL, which is the Utah Consortium for Educational Leadership. And in this consortium, there are members of USBE, members of the Scsb, some of the institutions of higher ed, our regional service centers, and different professional agencies. And so we all come together, and the idea of this group is to promote educational leadership and professional development, as well as influence policy that has to do with educational leadership in the state of Utah. And so this survey has been created. It's a brief survey, shouldn't take more than 10, 15 minutes. And really what we're going to use this information for with the UCEL team is to design and facilitate a menu of resources and professional learning opportunities for school leaders. So your feedback would be very valuable in there. But again, if you're tapped out right now, we understand and we support you. To kind of give another little bit of that, the UCEL is looking at these different charter director frameworks and working with USBE to really support our school leaders. You'll notice on the left side, this would be the framework for an experienced charter school director, and on the right side would be our new charter school director frameworks. And so it really brings together your community, mentors or coaches, as well as working with your board. And so we'll send this out. You can look at that a little more closely. It goes into some of this detail in the survey, but we would really love your feedback if you have that capacity to share to help influence the work that UCEL is doing. All right, so we're at the end of our In Case You Missed It section. I'm so glad you could be here today. As always, I love to end our meetings with a song. I was trying to think what would be a good September song to share. And in thinking back to being a director, I found one of my most effective tools to manage carpool was actually playing music outside, and that the students would be, throwing rocks or, climbing up the walls or trying to figure out how to sneak the playground or getting in fights. Sometimes I could really avoid a lot of that by just turning on some good fun music. And when people were singing or dancing, we had a lot less behavior problems. So I pulled up a song called Monday that I thought was really fun by Imagine Dragons. And so we'll play this. You're welcome to hang out and listen if you'd like. Otherwise, we'll catch you next month, and thank you for being here. So we'll let Imagine Dragons take it away.